Tales came to life as the journey unfolded. The coffee maker crackled dangerously close to Rick's face, but he didn't flinch. After 5 years of repairing broken appliances on Atlas Prime, he had either developed an immunity to electric shocks or had simply stopped caring. "Toaster, run a diagnostic scan," he muttered, prodding at the machine's corroded interior with a magnetic probe. His assistant drone wobbled forward, its unsteady anti-grav stabilizer struggling to keep it upright. The dented casing reflected the harsh station lights. A scan flickered across its display, followed by an alert. "Caffeine delivery system. Critical failure. Immediate replacement recommended. ****. Yeah, well, tell that to Mrs. Rodriguez on deck S," Rick scoffed, reaching for his sonic screwdriver. "She thinks this antique has been in her family for generations. Probably could buy a new one for what she's paying me to fix it." A sudden commotion outside his workshop cut him off. Through the grimy viewport, he glimpsed a struggle. 2 burly figures in black armor hauling someone between them. A flash of violet skin and silver hair caught his eye. "Not our problem," RX muttered, turning back to the coffee maker. But Toaster had already rolled toward the door, its sensors whirring with curiosity. "Get back here, you defective toasting unit," Rick hissed. Too late. The drone's unsteady movements carried it straight into the corridor, directly into the path of the armed escorts. What happened next played out like a series of slapstick mishaps. True to its function, Toaster collided with one guard's legs. The soldier stumbled, yanking on an ornate control collar fastened around their prisoner's neck. Rick lunged to retrieve his wayward drone, but accidentally triggered the magnetic probe still in his hand. The collar's locking mechanism responded instantly to the pulse, clicking open and falling to the deck with a melodic chime. Time seemed to freeze. Rick found himself staring into the most mesmerizing green eyes he had ever seen, set in a face so striking it made his breath hitch. The woman's violet skin shimmered under the station's artificial lighting, and her silver hair floated around her head like a cosmic halo, defying gravity. Her full lips curled into a smile, predatory yet pleased. "You have removed my collar," she said, her voice carrying the lilting melody of a Lamran accent. "According to the ancient laws of my people, we are now bound in marriage." "I'm what?" Rick blinked, his brain struggling to process her words. "No, wait. I was just trying to catch my stupid drone." "Silence," one of the guards bellowed, reaching for his weapon. "Do you have any idea what you've done? This is Lady Fleur La Meridian." She was en route to her ceremonial collar removal by the Duke. He never finished the sentence. Fleur moved like liquid mercury, her ceremonial robe swirling as she dropped into a combat stance. Her first strike sent the guard's weapon spinning down the corridor. The second put him on the deck, groaning. The other soldier managed to draw his blaster, but Fleur was faster. She spun, kicked, and ended up with both his weapon and his arm pinned behind his back. "Now then," she said pleasantly, as if she hadn't just disabled 2 armed men in formal attire. "Husband, I suggest we find somewhere more private to discuss our future together." Rick looked at the fallen guards, then at his malfunctioning drone, then back at the stunning alien warrior who had just declared him her spouse. "I don't suppose there's a return policy on accidental marriages?" he asked weakly. Fleur's laughter echoed down the corridor. "Oh, my dear human, you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. This isn't happening," Rick muttered, backing away as Fleur advanced toward him with that same predatory grace. "I fix appliances. I avoid complications. This is definitely a complication." Toaster beeped cheerfully, seemingly delighted by the chaos it had caused. The drone wobbled between them, its display flashing. "Congratulations on your nuptials. Searching database for appropriate wedding music. ****. Don't you dare," Rick warned. But the drone had already started playing an off-key version of the traditional wedding march. Fleur tilted her head, silver hair cascading over one shoulder. "Your mechanical companion has the right spirit. Though, on La Mara, our wedding songs are more martial in nature. A groan from one of the guards interrupted what was quickly becoming the most surreal moment of Rick's life. "We need to move," Fleur said, her playful expression sharpening. "More will come. And while I enjoy a good fight, I'd rather get to know my new husband without an audience." "Look, about that," Rick started, but Fleur had already grabbed his arm. Her touch sent an electric jolt through him, one that had nothing to do with faulty wiring. She pulled him into his workshop, Toaster trailing behind them like a drunken ring-bearer. "Fascinating," she mused, surveying the cluttered space stacked high with broken electronics. "You're some kind of techno-mage." "I fix coffee makers," Rick corrected, watching as she secured the door. Hence the drone's name. Speaking of which, Toaster stopped with the music. The drone sulked, switching to a funeral march instead. Fleur laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "You're nothing like the suitors my father selected. They were all so proper. Boring politicians and diplomats, each hoping to gain control of Lamar's auralite deposits through marriage. I don't want to control anything," Rick assured her, "except maybe my blood pressure, which is currently not cooperating." She moved closer, and Rick became acutely aware of how the station's recycled air carried a hint of something exotic. Storm clouds and alien flowers. "The removal ceremony is sacred to my people," she explained. "Only one worthy of becoming a Lamaran spouse can unlock it. We've had centuries of technological advancement, yet no one has cracked its ancient mechanics. Until you, by accident, the universe doesn't believe in accidents." Her green eyes sparkled. "Neither do I." Before Rick could argue, his workshop security console lit up with incoming alerts. Fleur checked the panel, her movements fluid and precise. "As I suspected, security forces are converging on this sector." And she frowned. "Something worse. The Duke's personal assassins." "The Duke? What Duke? And why assassins?" Rick raked a hand through his disheveled hair. "I thought this was just a marriage thing. Politics, my dear husband." Fleur's smile turned wicked. "The Duke of the Crimson Nebula was supposed to remove my collar in a grand ceremony. An alliance to strengthen both our systems." Rick exhaled sharply. "Fantastic. I've accidentally married an alien princess and pissed off a duke. This is exactly why I don't leave my workshop." Toaster beeped urgently, detecting movement in the corridor. Fleur pulled a small device from her robes. It expanded into what looked suspiciously like a plasma sword. "We have two options," she said. "We can stay and fight, which would be traditional and quite romantic by Lamaran standards. Or," she glanced at the workshop's cluttered workbench, "perhaps my technomancer husband has a less conventional solution." Rick looked at his tools, then at the beautiful warrior princess who had literally crashed into his life, then at his nervous drone. His brain, usually resistant to effort, spun with possibilities. "Toaster," he said slowly, "remember that modification we were working on? The one that definitely violates station regulations." The drone perked up, its display showing a series of excited emoticons. "I can't believe I'm doing this," Rick muttered, grabbing a handful of components. "But if we're going to escape assassins, and I never thought I'd say that sentence, we might as well do it with style." The transmission cut out, leaving them in silence, broken only by the muffled curses of their foam-encased attackers. "Well," Rick said finally, "that could have gone worse. He could have actually tried to kill me instead of just threatening to." Fleur moved closer, her hand finding his. The touch sent that same electric current through him, but this time, Rick's didn't pull away. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "We could run. I know places even Necrotech couldn't find us. Running sounds great, actually. I'm a big fan of running. Running is my favorite tactical maneuver." Rick's looked down at their joined hands, then at Toaster, who was attempting to toast a celebratory piece of bread in honor of their survival. "But," he continued, "I've spent my whole life avoiding things, responsibilities, challenges, relationships." He squeezed her hand. "Maybe it's time I actually fought for something. Or someone. Fleur's smile was radiant. Does this mean you're accepting our marriage? Let's call it a trial period, with the understanding that if we survive, we need to have a serious discussion about your father's tendency toward dramatic ultimatums. Their moment was interrupted by a new alarm from Toaster. The drone sensors had detected more incoming hostiles, a lot more. Speaking of survival, Rick said, already reaching for his tools, any chance those Llamaran combat skills of yours include pilot training? Because my mom's stealth courier should be arriving right about. A sleek, dark ship materialized outside their viewport, its stealth systems powering down just enough to be visible. Race you to the airlock, Fleur suggested, igniting her plasma sword. Oh, no. Rix grinned, picking up Toaster. This time, we're doing it my way. Toaster, initiate Operation Breakfast Special. The drone beeped happily, and suddenly, every automated system in the maintenance bay went berserk. Cargo loaders sprang to life. Maintenance bots emerged from their charging stations, and even the coffee maker Ricks had been fixing earlier started shooting, scalding jets of liquid at their pursuers. Your way, Fleur laughed as they ran through the chaos, is absolutely insane, says the warrior princess who married a stranger because he broke her jewelry. Technically, you're now a warrior prince. Great. Add that to my business cards. Right under Toaster Repair Specialist. The stealth courier's autopilot carried them smoothly through the chaos of Atlas Prime's shipping lanes. Once they were safely in hyperspace, Rix found himself alone with Fleur in the ship's compact living quarters. Toaster had plugged itself into the ship systems, happily managing their flight path and probably reorganizing the vessel's entire database. Your mother's taste in ships is impressive, Fleur said, running her hand along a sleek control panel. Military-grade stealth systems, quantum-shielded hull, and she pressed a button and soft music filled the cabin. An excellent entertainment system. Mom always said a good tactical retreat should be comfortable. Rix was trying very hard not to notice how the ship's ambient lighting made Fleur's violet skin glow like twilight, though I suspect she had an ulterior motive in sending this particular vessel. Oh, it's her personal romantic getaway ship, isn't it? Fleur laughed, the sound making something warm unfurl in Rick's chest. Your mother is a fascinating woman. That's one word for it. He watched as she moved around the cabin, her natural grace making even the simple act of exploration mesmerizing. Can I ask you something? You're my husband. You can ask me anything, right? About that. Rix ran a hand through his disheveled hair. Why aren't you more upset about this? You were supposed to marry a duke, secure some important alliance. Instead, you're stuck with, well, me. Fleur stopped her exploration, turning to face him fully. Her green eyes held his with an intensity that made his breath catch. Have you seen the Duke of the Crimson Nebula? Can't say that I have. Imagine a sentient mass of tentacles with delusions of grandeur and a fondness for aggressive cologne. She wrinkled her nose. Now imagine being told you must spend your life with that, because it's politically expedient. When you put it that way, Rix found himself smiling. Still, you don't know anything about me. I know you're brilliant, but pretend not to be. I know you care more than you let on. I've seen how you treat that ridiculous drone of yours. I know you can turn any situation to your advantage, but choose not to most of the time. She moved closer, and Rix caught that intoxicating scent of storm clouds and alien flowers again. And I know that when you accidentally married me, your first instinct was to protect me from those guards, even though you clearly hate confrontation. That was mostly panic and poor decision-making. Was it? She was very close now. Or was it instinct? The same instinct that let you unlock my collar when generations of suitors had failed. Rick swallowed hard. I told you. That was just a random magnetic. Her kiss silenced his protests. It was nothing like he expected. Not that he'd spent time imagining kissing alien princesses. Her lips were soft but insistent, tasting faintly of starlight and possibility. His hands found her waist of their own accord, pulling her closer as the kiss deepened. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Fleur's silver hair had somehow wound itself around them both like a celestial embrace. "That," she said softly, "was not random at all." "No," Rix agreed, his usual wit deserting him entirely. "Definitely not random. They came together again, and this time there was nothing accidental about it." Somewhere in the ship systems, Toaster dimmed the lights and started playing what it considered appropriate romantic music, which turned out to be a mix of Lamran battle hymns and Earth classical compositions. Neither Rix nor Fleur noticed, two lost in their own private universe of discovery and connection. For the first time in his life, Rix understood why people fought for things, why they risked everything for someone else. He'd spent years avoiding exactly this kind of complication, this kind of vulnerability. But as Fleur curled against him, her breath soft against his neck and her presence filling all the empty spaces he hadn't even known were there, he realized something important. Some complications were worth every risk, every fight, every moment of chaos they brought with them. And he would face whatever came next, Necrotech, angry dukes, dramatic emperors, or his mother's inevitable wedding planning, because the woman in his arms made it all worthwhile, even if she did insist on carrying a plasma sword everywhere. Sometimes, the best stories aren't about chosen ones or legendary heroes. They're about ordinary people and robots who discover they're capable of far more than they ever imagined. If you ever felt like Rix, playing it safe to avoid complications, or like Fleur, stuck in expectations you never signed up for, maybe this story was meant for you. In a universe full of Star Wars and Star Treks, sometimes we need a reminder that even a guy who fixes coffee makers can save the galaxy with the right motivation and a highly sophisticated toaster. I'd love to hear what you thought about this cosmic comedy of errors. Did you relate to Rick's strategic laziness? Did Admiral Mom remind you of your own family's well-intended meddling? Are you now side-eyeing your kitchen appliances, wondering if they have matchmaking capabilities? Drop a comment, send a signal, or simply raise a glass of Citron Quick Lemonade to love, chaos, and the occasional accidental marriage. And remember, sometimes the best things in life happen when we stop dodging complications and start embracing them instead. May your coffee makers never break, and may your toasters always have your back. P.S. No appliances were harmed in the making of this story, though a few did learn to play Never Gonna Give You Up.